Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel, and I'm going to be talking about probability today. So, pretty often in math, we deal with problems which have outcomes that are always certain, that always remain constant. So, that could be something like the addition fact 1 plus 1 equals 2. We know when we add 1 plus 1, we're always going to get our answer of 2, and we're not going to get 3 or 4 or any other number. So that's a certain outcome. We know we're going to get 2. But this is not always the case in math. So when we encounter problems to which we don't have certain outcomes, we have multiple outcomes that are possible. We need to use probability. An example of this that I thought of is just like if you're getting up in the morning and looking to put on a shirt and you're not looking in your drawer, you could pull out a shirt of any color. So you have two red shirts and two yellow shirts in your drawer. You could pull out either a red or a yellow shirt, and you wouldn't know for certain unless you looked. But when we have cases like this, and we want to determine the odds of a certain outcome occurring, we use probability. Probability is actually defined as the likelihood of a certain outcome occurring. It's written as a number between 0 and 1. So if something has a probability of 0, that means the event or outcome is impossible and it will never happen. And in contrast, if it has a probability of 1, that means that the outcome of the event is certain, and that outcome will always occur, no matter what. To find probability, we have a formula. So we'll put the number of times that a desired outcome is possible, that it could happen, on top of our fraction, and we'll divide that number by the total number of outcomes that could happen. So this is sort of a tricky formula without an example, but we're going to get into that in a minute and put it into practice, so it should come together. We see probability play out everywhere in the world, so it's really easy to practice because we can do it with almost anything we find around us. So I have two ordinary white socks with me. And let's say that I'm getting up in the morning and I'm gonna go and put on a pair of socks. So I'm reaching into my drawer. And let's say I only have these two white socks in my drawer. My drawer is gonna be this tote over here. So we're gonna be doing some pretending. So I've got two white socks in my drawer. We're gonna find out what the probability would be that when I reach in, I pull out a white sock. And this should not be overly tricky. So to figure this out, we take the number of times it would be possible to pull out a white sock, which is 2 times, because remember I have two white socks in the drawer. And we're going to divide that number by the total number of socks that I have in the drawer, which is also 2. So if we divide 2 by 2, we get 1, and that is our probability of taking out a white sock from the drawer. So I'm going to try it right now without looking. And yeah, I was pretty certain that I would get a white sock. So for the 2 times that I pulled out a sock, a white sock came out both times. So that checks out. And let's say that I still only have this pair of white socks in my drawer. What would the probability be then of picking out a gray sock? So remember, I haven't put these in the drawer. So there's no gray socks in the drawer. I'm going to pull out a sock here. And it's white. And the other one is white too. So the probability of pulling out a gray sock is 0 because there are no gray socks in the drawer. And if I divide 0 by the total number of socks, 2, we're still going to get 0 because any number which 0 is divided by will still equal 0. So let's see. I'm going to put the gray socks in the drawer now. So now I'm going to have 2 white socks and 2 gray socks in the drawer. And now, what is the probability of taking out a gray sock in this case, now that I actually have some in the drawer. Let's use our formula to figure that out. So I have 4 socks total now in the drawer, 2 of which are white and 2 of which are gray. So to find out how many possible times I could take a gray sock out, we just need to count our gray socks. So there are 2 gray socks. So that is our numerator in the formula. And then there are 4 total socks in the drawer. So that is our denominator, what we're dividing by. So 2 divided by 4 is 2 over 4, which reduces to 1/2. And that will be our probability of pulling out a white sock, or a gray sock, pardon me. So let's give this a try real quick. So I've just pulled out a gray sock, first try. Second try, I pulled out a white sock. So 1 out of the 2 times I pulled out a gray sock. That actually worked. That's cool. And that will not always be the case with the order. The order is random, but you always have the same chance of pulling out any number of socks, no matter how many of each color there are. So the sock examples are pretty simple because there's not that many, and we don't have a ton of possible outcomes. But let's try a bit harder example. So this is an ordinary die, and if I roll this, we'll have 6 possible outcomes, 1 for each side of the cube. And it's numbered 1 through 6 with little dots. So let's try to figure out the probability of me rolling a 3 on the die. So I can see there's only 1 3 written on the die that takes up one side. So that's our numerator in the formula for probability. And our denominator, the total possible outcomes, is how many sides are on the die, which is 6. So we only have 1 possible way of getting a 3, and we have 6 possible outcomes total. So 1 divided by 6 is 1 over 6, and that is our probability for rolling a 3. So I'm going to try this. I should roll 1 3 at least in the 6 times that I roll this. So I just rolled a 1, just rolled a 5, oh, and I rolled a 3, a 4, another 4, oh, it fell off, and a 2. So I did roll at least 1 3 in all the times that I rolled the die. And that won't always work for one trial, but the more trials you do, the better your chances are of having an accurate reading. So if you're really testing probability, it's important to do as many trials as you can. And real quickly, let's try to figure out the probability of rolling an even number on this die. So let's count the even numbers real quick. We've got a 2, we've got a 4, and we have a 6. So there are 3 even numbers on the die, and again there are 6 possible sides it can land on. So we take our numerator 3, we divide it by 6, and we get 1/2 again. So that is our probability of rolling either a 2, 4, or 6 even numbers. And that's pretty much the lesson. Let's just do a quick recap before we go. So probability is best defined as the likelihood of a certain outcome occurring. And it's written usually as a number between 0 and 1, 0 being something that is impossible to happen, that will never happen, and 1 meaning the outcome is certain and will always occur no matter what. And to find probability, we take the number of times which a specific outcome could happen, say rolling a 1 on the die, and we divide that number by the total number of possible outcomes, say having 6 sides on a die. So rolling a 1 on a die would have a probability of 1 out of 6 because we have 6 sides on the die and only 1 written. Thanks guys, that's my lesson.